In this episode,
we've talked deeply about the movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot to think about. Some of it may be overthinking, but
probably a lot of it, man. I think that Blaine, his smile is like these cats here. It was all the absinthe, man. We in between the shows, we're just chugging absinthe, and Blaine's lighting it on fire. And
I haven't gone downstairs. But...
yeah.
Welcome. You're listening to PaleoCheeze Podcast, episode 22, part 2, with guest Blaine Cook, discussing Cemetery Man.
So, part 2 with Blaine Cook, where we'll be discussing the movie that he picked, Cemetery Man, which I originally saw in the early 90s, I think, 94, 95. It's also known as, what is it, Della Morte della More?
Yes.
It's about two cemetery workers who stop the dead from coming to life while looking for love in all the wrong places. It's directed by Michele Soavi. There's a bunch of names here I can't pronounce. Who also, the director actually acted in a bunch of Dario Argento films, like small parts, like Demons and Phenomena and one or two other ones. House by the Cemetery, I think. Or is that Fulci? Or City of the Living Dead or something like that. It's written by Tiziano. I don't know.
He's really mad right now. Names. He's listening to the show and he's just furious. He's like, bro, you've hacked it.
Yeah, written by Tiziano and starring Rupert Everett, England's answer to Bruce Campbell. At least that's what I kind of picked up on.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
That long face, the dark hair, kind of handsome.
Yeah.
So
handsome, but can also act kind of crazy.
Jeremiah, you never seen this before, right?
No.
Blaine, why did you pick this one? What is it that you liked about Cemetery Man?
Well, when Jeremiah was, talking about watching these short things on YouTube, sometimes these things I'll get it in the feed of the YouTube. It's like, 5 horror movies that you need to see or 5 whatever. And it was like, that was one that came up, Cemetery Man. And I'd never heard of it before. So, when I find one like that, it's like, well, can I watch it for free on YouTube?
Yeah.
Watch it. It's like, oh God, this is brilliant. And I didn't know anything about it. I just assumed from watching it that it was more an early 80s type of a deal. And it wasn't until, I was talking to you about doing this that, I looked into it, it was like, it was from 94 and it was, kind of supposed to be kind of a bit comedic. And, but I'd drawn, a lot of the conclusions before I read all the other post spoiler stuff, about, the main actor who played Francesco Delamore, the main guy that worked at the cemetery with his sidekick, Nagi.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
Yeah.
Like a curly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a Curly meets the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Quasimodo.
It's kind of like a buddy movie, like one of those things that people say now, kind of like a buddy movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched it. I just thought, God, this is really great. I don't know how I missed it,
A lot of people haven't heard of this. I never hear anybody talking about this. So when you brought it up, I was a little surprised. I had seen it, like I said, in the 90s. My dad and I watched it together, and he really liked it. I remember that, and I liked it. My dad liked it for 2 different reasons than what I did. But
yeah, 2 different reasons.
Yeah. But yeah, it is I like this movie. But Jeremiah, you haven't seen it before. You didn't know anything about it. What'd you think of it?
What did I think of it? Like the whole thing, or like my first impression?
Just just your
my first impression, man. I'm the music was fitting. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't until later. I felt like later on in the film that there were a couple songs, and I wish I had those songs, the track number, like for the soundtrack, to tell you which one it was, because it was just, I felt like it got more dynamic. Like it was really simple in the beginning, kind of that really strong dong dong dong, but it was foreboding. You know what I mean? Like it had an intense sound that gave a real good feel to what you were dealing with. It was, you can tell right away kind of what you're in for, you know, because of the way that it's structured, the way that the props, which were mad props to them, by the way. I thought that was really, especially for being low budget, I thought it was amazing. I thought they did a really good job. The home, it almost gave a feel like the Muppet Musicians of Bremen. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but out in the swamp, you know, having kind of a log cabin out in the middle of the swamp down in Louisiana or something like that. The inside, it kind of gives you almost like if there was a little bit wealthier group living in the log cabin in the swamp right down in Louisiana, because they had things in there, but he's living underneath the floorboards, you know. Nagi is the buddy relationship. And although I gotta say, man, Francesco was kind of a douche. He was really rude to him like the whole time.
He's like, you're not cute.
Yeah, you're not cute. And it didn't seem like it was really playful. Like he really didn't care for him in a way. That's kind of how I felt at first. So I was pleasantly surprised by the way. He took it for granted. And at the end, you know, the way that kind of played itself out toward the end and what he said about their friendship, actually.
Yeah, that he was his best friend.
He was his best friend. And that he didn't know. I didn't know till now. And the idea that, you know, you're shooting zombies, man. You're shooting them in the head. And so everything gives you a feel like there's nothing really hidden. You kind of know what you're in for pretty quickly. And it stays true to that. And then it kind of goes like off the rails. And I felt like to me, I can see people being frustrated by that and being like, there was no cohesion to it. It seemed like, you know, it was kind of all over the map. But I actually I enjoyed it, but it kept making me wish that it was a TV show, and that it was something, because I felt like it was almost like Buffy. I mean this is a compliment. I actually enjoy that show, and so I know people might be like, really, but no, I think that it's a lot like that, and you could make these characters almost like that. And I liked that there was somebody who described it. I'll scroll down here. There was one of the critics who was saying that basically it's like in 3 parts.
See, I've got my notes right here.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, man. That's smart, man. That's better than me scrolling around.
Yeah.
You know, but realviews.net said Cemetery Man is loosely divided into 3 episodes. And I felt like interesting choice of words, because I felt like it's kind of a play on it in one way. That it really did feel a little bit almost like 3 episodes. Dude, it was fun though. I mean, I knew right away it was going to be fun. I knew it was going to be crazy. I knew that there was going to be, you know, murder, but it took me by surprise in a lot of ways. And I feel that it's a lot deeper on a philosophical scale to do with death and mortality and love. And love. Yes, dude. Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, hear me out on this. This might sound a little strange, but I thought the whole thing was very Shakespearean, because I mean you have tragedy after tragedy with love as the central theme. Both Nagi and Del Morte are desperate for love. Nagi falls in love with a young girl. She dies. Then her head falls in love with him, but then Del Morte kills the head, and then Del Morte falls in love with a girl, mistakenly kills her, then kills her again. Then falls in love with another incarnation of her, and then takes steps to make sure that he's impotent, because she has a phobia of being penetrated, basically. And then she gets raped and decides that she likes sex, so doesn't want to marry him anymore, and he's screwed.
But she wants to marry her rapist,
knowing that now Del Morte claims to be, you know, impotent, and took these measures. And it reminded me of all of that stuff, all of the like the deaths and falling in love, and then death, falling in love and death, and taking such measures like the injection that the guy took when he actually was going to have it cut off, and then have it. That part in particular reminded me of the end of Romeo and Juliet, you know, with the whole poison thing. And it's like, it screwed up. So to me, I mean, yeah, if you wanted to like look at kind of the bigger picture instead of just like, well, this is a zombie movie, it felt like Shakespeare to me. Not in the sense that, I mean, it's a low budget film and it's, there's a lot of silliness in it, but the laughs are in the right places. This isn't one of those bad movies where it's like you're laughing at stuff that the director didn't want you to laugh at.
It's a well executed low budget movie.
Yeah.
It's when they were still making movies that look like movies, like stuff now that looks too video, versus that looks like it's film. And some of the scenes, I mean, they're really rich, like the catacomby kind of scenes where it's, all the skeletons all around. And
which was a real place, I guess. Like that ossuary or whatever they call it was like a real one. I don't know if the skeletons inside were real, but it was a real one.
They got that junk over there, though. They got some macabre stuff over there.
If I didn't know any better, if I didn't know this was an Italian film, I would have swore that it was New Zealand, because it reminded me of even especially the humor reminded me of like Dead Alive or Bad Taste. It reminded me of New Zealand a lot. Even some of the camera stuff. Peter Jackson with those early films like Dead Alive, I feel like he was kind of copying Sam Raimi in Sam Raimi's early stuff, like the zooming close-ups and like way too close up.
I like the motif of wind. That you're talking about mortality, right? You're talking about life. It's pretty dark, by the way, on that. It's a pretty dark movie when it comes to like the meaning of life. What are we here for? That we're just born to die. That's just all it is. There's no, like, in that world, there's no concept of hope, right? Or even like what's outside of that, of that little world, that it's just imaginary. And you come to the end of the road and you realize that maybe, that's an existential moment, at the end, coming to the little end of the road through the light at the tunnel, so you're going through the tunnel and there's a bright light, and next thing you know, you're there and it's the end of the road. It's a massive cliff, and he's been right all the time. But the wind that, there were so many things blowing in the wind, ranging from the head covering that she had, the mantilla, to silk dresses, to the drapes inside of the city building where all of the papers and folders were kind of wrapped up so that it wouldn't fly all over the place. And his buddy was looking for a paper. Well, that blind, man, that wind coming through was huge. The leaves that were blowing all over the place, which ended up being a really cool line about the buddy, about Nagi throwing himself onto the leaves, and that he really cared about that. And he hated to see them blown away. And I think even that's an image of life and friends. I don't think that it's just simply that he loves the leaves, that there's a concept of he's a simpleton. There's very few things that he's got. And when he sees these things blowing away, he'll throw himself on it to keep them. And there was a really cool scene, and some people may have missed it, but I felt like they did a good job too with the funeral, the Catholic funeral, and they had a thurifer, dude. I don't know if you noticed that they had a thurifer. That's the one with the thurible. That's the incense. I'm a thurifer, man, at the Latin Mass, and so like I carry the incense, right? The thurible, and the incense is coming up. It's a metal incense container, and you kind of swing it and stuff. And they had that in the procession in the beginning, which is hilarious to see the picture of the husband, by the way, the absurdity of that, right? And she's talking about how he's this amazing lover and stuff. But the scene and his face, dude, I was like, it was so great, man. That face that he had, I'm like, what? So there had to be laughs with that. But there's a scene where it's kind of the corpse eye view, right? So it's down inside of the hole in the ground, and the priest is they're getting ready to throw in the dirt, and the priest turns, and you have the rope that is around his waist, and there's like a sound of like almost a whip going through the air, and that rope is swinging kind of pretty far over. I mean, you'd have to intentionally turn pretty hard to get that, to do that. But it was just so the director, if that was done on purpose, and it would almost have to be, that if the director did that on purpose, it was brilliant. I loved it. I thought it looked so cool because it ends up being in slow motion kind of. It goes like, and it makes this noise, kind of a whip sound. And it was just little things like that, man. And to see wind throughout the whole thing and how that plays into the idea of time is passing, and the idea of vanity, the idea of death. and it's here today, gone tomorrow, kind of thing. And I just it was awesome, actually.
According to the director, I read a little bit of trivia on this. What was bringing to life the people was mandragola roots. Those roots that you saw like attached to them and in their graves. That's apparently how they were coming to life. Was that
interesting? Yeah, because it was weird how they would, after rising 7 days after they were buried, that they had that stuff growing out of them, and it was kind of like those fool cheat zombies that have the worms and the maggots and whatnot, coming out. It was
Jeremiah, you used the word when you were describing the guy's picture, like
absurd.
The most absurd scene that I thought was that mayor showed up to try to get publicity and sympathy by digging up his daughter and showing her in the ground. It's just clearly it was a way of just showing the desperation that someone in politics can have to garner votes or someone's sympathy or something to like that was hilarious, man. That dude,
that whole scene is ridiculous. I mean, the girl gets puked on. She wants to buy Nagi and she's calling him it, like he's an object, and he ends up puking on her. And then that motorcycle dude comes up right at that moment, and that motorcycle gang is hilarious. Like the fact that they even are there, you know what I mean, with their leather jackets and stuff. And he just rolls up, and she's like, "Let's get out of here," with all the puke on her and stuff. And the dad doesn't care. He's like, "Whatever." So they go off and everything, and then they end up getting run over by a truck full of Boy Scouts that were there with nuns, right? So like a Catholic church with a bunch of Boy Scouts in a bus, and they get run over, which is a hilarious scene where they're like crushing the skull of these. It shows like the body like getting smushed, right? Yeah. Pretty bad. And then the bus goes flying over the cliff, and that bugger is dead too. So now the funeral is massive. And it was crazy because I don't know if it's the mom or the dad, but it's like, she died even on the eve of the elections. How could you do this to me? It was the mayor. And he's like, how could you do this to me? But he was even concerned at her funeral over the fact that it wasn't really that she's dead, but that it was on the eve of an election, and how could she do that to him, kind of a thing. And so then he goes later, so it'd be kind of a little unsurprising that he's going to go. He's obviously a clown. He's going to go and try to drum up some votes by saying, I too can relate. I too had a child that died in this, and you can relate to me, and that will help with the votes. And even the willingness of the whole group to say, you want to take a picture from the chest down because her head's gone. Yeah. And the whole dude, it was just, but yet in each and every one of those absurd scenarios, it was actually smart, because it wasn't just like, there's random comedy that just, it's funny because it's just so random, and we might be able to kind of relate to something like that. But even just the absurdity of that and how ridiculous it is makes it kind of funny. This wasn't just how ridiculous it was, but that it really did make fun of something that we all kind of know, and almost everybody involved, true to the actual character, and true to the actual scenario, to say these are absurd things about life that we take very, very seriously. And yet even those really things that we take very seriously sometimes are absurd.
The humor in this movie is so dry and subtle. And that's one of the reasons why I like it so much is I think if you're expecting, or if you're used to like physical comedy or more in your face comedy, you might not really pick up on some of the humor in this, like the cop, the worst cop ever, the detective guy, the worst detective ever. It's like, even when that guy, he's like, good, you've got a gun. Like he just killed all those people. And he's like, good, you got a gun. There's a guy here that's killing people. You're going to need it in protection. It's like, wow. That guy just doesn't have a clue. He's got this guy by the balls all the time with evidence and stuff, and he's just not putting it together. What do you guys make of the end where Della Morte says that the rest of the world doesn't exist, and then minutes later it shows them inside the snow globe?
It's one of the. I mean, I don't know. There's some of these movies that get a little bit too deep for my simple brain, but there's the scene where Della Morte, he's killed everybody in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And then the camera goes up and they show like those screens
Mm-hmm.
that are surrounding the bed. So it's almost like you're looking at it from this whole other view, and it's something different. And then they show them at the end where they're in that snow globe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does that mean that it wasn't like that it was like fake? Or
yeah, I know what you're saying, because before they did the bird's eye view thing, I noticed that he was shooting these people, but you could see the part of the ceiling and the wall around him, and I was like, are they doing this on purpose? Is this supposed to be like not real? Is this supposed to represent like a dream state or something? Because it didn't look like it looked strange.
Yeah.
And so when the bird's eye view, we turn it on.
Snow globe, it's kind of crappy. I mean, it's like not really a very effect. There's just kind of like these clay figures. Yeah. It's not very good snow globe, so it's not even like they tried to do a proper representation. I don't know. That's where it gets to be too. Some of these movies there's some underlying philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
I thought when I saw the world as it's coming up and everything, and it's blank, everything is black around him, right? And he's in this absurd scenario shooting people down, just taking it to the extreme, like even really ridiculous things, although somebody didn't believe him, because he said, it was a quarrel between the doctor and the nurse, or the nun, because at first he shoots the nun, and then the doctor comes in and he's like, what is she doing? He's like, she's praying. And he just believed him. Like, she would be praying on the ground like that, and he just turned around and wham, and shoots the doctor. And then this other nurse comes in and wonders what's happening. And he said that it was a quarrel between the two of them. And she's like, what? And he goes, you don't believe me? And she goes, no, like this. And he goes, boo, and he shoots her. And he's wanting to know, like, why are you taking my crime away from me? Like, what did I do? Like, why are you taking even these small things? My life's pretty insignificant, kind of thing. This is mine, right? Which is absurd that you want, like, I want the responsibility for these crimes. And then when it pulls away and it shows that everything was black, I thought about it and I said, I think that is, without wanting to get too fancy, solipsism, that reality is in your brain. And that nothing is real. And that's why there was multiple mentions throughout the film. Is there anything actually out there? Or is this all there is? And in fact, because he was asked on the phone, would you want to travel the world? And what can you imagine it's like? And his answer was basically that I don't even know if it exists. In other words, like, does outside your door exist right now? That's kind of like what that's asking. And it's saying that in the world he's inhabiting, from his perspective, he's surrounded by people, and there's, different buildings and cars and roads. But if you take the bird's eye view of that, it would be as if he's in a black void, and the only thing that is existing is whatever is in that moment in his mind. That it's him. Like, this is almost like everything, the monsters, the death, the women, everything is like his betrayal, his dislike for a friend, and then his, realizing he'd actually cared about him the whole time. All of that is him, if that makes sense. So I kind of wondered that, and like, as I said, at the very, very end, when he goes and he's at the end of everything and he sees it, he goes, I should have known it. The rest of the world doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
In the thing you guys brought up, the snow globe, the very first thing I thought when I saw the snow globe is I thought, anytime you flip something that's like a snow globe or an hourglass, it's the idea of you're repeating the same thing. It's cyclical. It goes and then it drops all down, and then you got to do it again, and it does the same thing, and then you do it again, and it's the same thing. And in a world like this, where it's vanity, where it doesn't mean anything, where it's just in your brain, I felt like that was a really great symbol to use. And so in the end, to see that, I thought, this is actually, the guy who made this is pretty smart to use that. I thought that was a really clever device that helped to build on the idea of everything just repeating, everything being vanity, And you can tell the vanity by the end when, like you said, man, the cop who's like, oh, you've got a gun. It's, great. You can defend yourself. And it's all pointing to him. And he's realizing everybody is insane. He's literally screaming at the top of his lungs that he's the one who did it. And by the time he did it, everyone was gone.
This could go so much deeper than just like a zombie comedy horror film. And when I think about all of the lack of explanation of the zombies and why they're even coming to life in the first place, and the 3 incarnations of the same girl, being repeated and falling in love with each of them, but not being able to have them for different reasons. I think that it probably does go deeper than your average viewer, would be able to really interpret. But I have a theory, and it might be a little outlandish for the end. That if the tunnel represented, because even death itself is in the film as like the Grim Reaper. When he asks him to stop killing people, essentially the
like, kill the living.
Yeah, essentially the guy who's supposed to be the protagonist, the guy that keeps falling, De La Morte, he starts killing people. He kills 7 bullies, but he's not a good guy. Like you said, he wasn't that good to Nagi, and he doesn't seem to have any kind of reservation about really harming anyone else. Even when he killed that chick on the motorcycle, he was like, oh, let's bury her. It wasn't like a real big deal. So I'm wondering if by the end, if the tunnel represented death, and that the light represented the light at the end of the tunnel, like the afterlife, and that he stopped, and that because at the very end, Nagi can talk and De La Morte can't anymore. De La Morte, the only word that comes out of his mouth is the one that Nagi says, the only word that Nagi says throughout the whole movie. So they've completely switched spots. And I wonder if that is somehow supposed to represent maybe De La Morte is like going to hell now, and this is his life, where the innocent kind of, simpleton who was a good guy, he's going to the light or heaven or whatever. And it's shown through the fact that they have kind of switched places. And now De La Morte has this bane that Nagi had with the, not being able to speak. And now, plus Nagi says, take me home. Will you take me home? So that could be pushing, that could be trying to, reach too far, but I don't understand like that switch at the end and the choice of words.
I'm not pretending to have the answer, but this is what I took away, is that it's not resurrection, it's reincarnation. Because it's cyclical. It repeats itself. And so you're trapped inside this thing that keeps on going.
So more like a Buddhist thing, I guess.
It would be like De
La Morte was a bad person.
Eastern religions.
So now he's not speaking, whereas Nagi was. So he's getting. I mean, isn't that part of their? You're supposed to
attain Zen, right?
Yeah, and then the better you are, when you're reincarnated, you end up being something better.
Yeah, there were some views that would say that. And that's where I was going with it. Was based on the views that would say that, that if you're doing something, as you're striving, when you're reincarnated, you're continuing kind of a course in a way, right? And that you're bettering yourself, and it kind of is reflecting a kind of advancement to the point where you would eventually reach this place, right, of perfection or Zen, right? Which in the end is really nothingness, by the way, nirvana.
Yeah.
This sense of, that you've reached a place of nothingness, not desiring even. And so to see him and not complain. And you can see, I think, an embodiment of that with Nagi. You can see that in the scene where he's eating ice cream with headphones in, and he's watching war. And yet he's quite obviously content. And he's just kind of just enjoying himself with whatever he's listening to. There's war on the screen. there's war with zombies all around him, shots firing everywhere. One zombie lands on him and he pushes it off. And it wasn't until the screen was shot that he actually had any kind of concern, that it was like the simple things, you know, and that he was kind throughout and tolerant of the guy who's constantly ripping on him, and the guy who had the women, multiple women, the guy who had control. He was the carrier of the gun, you know, so like he had all of this, you know, power and control, that in the end, he ended up being the one who was consigned to a lower place. And where were they going? They were going back to home, which is, again, that's the flip of the hourglass, the flip of the snow globe. And so it's going to do this cycle again. But now Nagi's going to be in a place where at least he's able to talk. But did you catch, Blaine? Did you, like, Nagi was putting together that skull, and he was hiding, wasn't he? I mean, like, do you think like, did he know how to do more? Do you think, like?
Yeah. I don't know if putting the skull together. That was right after he dug up the head. Yeah,
he put it together pretty quickly too.
Like I said, you're reading way too more into it than I am.
Oh yeah, it was a good movie. I'm just glad you had me watch, man. After my brain reels, I watch this kind of thing, and I'm looking at it and I'm seeing symbols and metaphors and motifs, and I'm just like, man, I didn't expect it. And that's why, like, I'm really grateful, man, that you picked this, because I'm just kind of sitting there thinking, like, I wasn't expecting that. And that is the one thing I kind of lied a little bit. I didn't lie. I've learned something along the way, you guys. And that is that, you know, I said when I first watched it, you knew what you were in for. And the truth is, I think that a person who wants to really think about this, and I looked up different reviews and stuff, and I saw one that kind of gave a hint that there was more there. And it was about the love stuff. And so, I mean, that's like, you know, this may actually be the most in detailed analysis of the film on the internet. once this video goes out, people will be like, whoa, really? These guys really went there?
He also at one point did say he was wondering if this was happening other places, or if this was the only place this was happening, where these people came back after 7 days. So that might have been, that might play into the whole thing at the end, that, was it real or what, you can think about that.
Yeah. I think that makes it cool, man. I think, and this is so far out of left field. I mean, like Chad said, Chad is a connoisseur. I mean, he's like, this is his world. And he's like, when we talked about it, he said, man, I haven't seen this in a long time. I mean, it's like, and so we were really just surprised about it. And I think, aren't I the one that picked it though, Chad? Out of the three?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. But I didn't watch any previous. He just described them. And so I went through and thought about it and said, okay, let's do this.
We picked the least rapey one.
Yeah,
syndrome is kind of rapey.
Yeah. This had some skin though. And I wrote down the timestamps. We'll put them in the description, like on YouTube, so parents can be like, yeah, we can skip over that. You know what I mean?
Deathgasm is that total, New Zealand, Australian,
Yeah, I haven't seen that either. I think I saw like the first 20 minutes, and then it was one of those things where I was like, I'll finish it tomorrow. And then when you mentioned it, I was like, that's right, I started this like a year ago, and I never went back to it.
Yeah.
For all we know, the director could be like, or the writer could be like, wow, you guys, yeah, no, you are way off. You are reading way too much into this.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly possible to create art and not have some kind of extra deep meaning. But there are some things like that. What was his name? Frank? I thought was a strange character because he played a big role at the end, but he wasn't they didn't establish him very well as a character and what his role really was. So when that came at the end, it's like where he killed his family and then tried to kill himself. It's like, what? I didn't even know who the guy was at first. And then I was like, oh, that's his friend. But I think that it was done intelligently enough to have some kind of reason for like the three incarnations of the same girl and things like that. And then the end, but I don't know what it means. Maybe I should dig on YouTube and see what other people are saying. If there's other videos on there, maybe there's a Blu-ray with a commentary.
Yeah, I'd like to see that actually.
What do you give it, Jeremiah?
I enjoyed it. I think that, and this is one of those that I can imagine people being like, dude, no, I can imagine it being like a love-hate relationship that that you're either on one of two sides of this, that someone can say, because it is repetitive. There's a lot of repetition, but I think that for a person, who either just simply likes that kind of, that kind of gore, that kind of humor and stuff like that, perfectly fine. And I think for a person who wants to think deeply about it, that is essential to have it being repetitive, if in fact the theme is that it's cyclical and it's just vanity, it just repeats. So I feel that, to me, B to a B plus. And I don't know if I would, if somebody came up and said, hey, should I see this movie? I'd be selective, because but I also wouldn't want to let somebody down and say, don't watch it. I'd almost rather say to watch it and tell me you didn't like it than to not watch it and then find out later that you enjoyed it and be like, yo, bro, why'd you tell me you don't watch it? So I would say fall on that side of things, man. And if you're one of those people who are sensitive to issues like nudity, we'll make sure to share the timestamps, because there's a couple scenes in there, a beautiful lady, ain't gonna lie. I mean, that's the thing. Kind of goes on with that. But yeah, man, I'd give it a B to a B plus, and I'm favoring the B plus because it was cool, man. And it's smart, and it's a movie that I actually want to think about more. Like, it's a movie that I want to try to go back and maybe see, my theories that I've got, and kind of see how they play out if I watch it again, because it would be easy to watch again because it actually is just fun too. And the characters are insane, but also relatable in the situations, like throwing yourself at different people, and getting involved in these relationships and thinking, willing to sacrifice even to insane degrees in order to get love and keep a hold of that. And finding yourself in precarious situations and buddies that you may have taken for granted that later on you wish you didn't. There's so many themes in there about that are just true to actual normal life, that I feel that it's gotten a bad rap to only have it's like a 6.2 or something like that, which isn't the worst score in the world, by the way. I mean, there are a lot of other movies on IMDb that it would be worse than that. But I feel like it's a little shady to give them that score. But that's just me. That's just my take, my personal take. What about you, Chad? What do you think, man?
Well, so we're doing letter grades now, and not.
That was just the rating that I saw somebody do. So
okay. Okay.
And you're getting into like these astronomical decimal points. I mean,
no.
Talking like high level stuff.
No, I give it 4 stars. I like it. It's not something that if somebody said, "Hey, I'm looking for a good zombie movie. Do you have one in mind?" To me, it's not really a zombie movie, because I know they want to see. I mean, there's plenty of like flesh pulling, So it is a zombie movie, but it's so much more than that. But I like it. I remember liking it before when I watched it with my dad, and I still like it. I'm glad to see that it holds up. I didn't think about it back then deeply. Most of the movies I watched with him, we were pretty stoned anyway, but I didn't think about it very deeply. And this time I did. So I looked at it differently. Last time I just saw humor, tits, zombies, and this time I see a little bit more than that. What about yourself, Blaine? Do you have some kind of like on a scale of 1 to 5?
To give it a strong 4. Yeah, 5 is one of those things. Yeah, very, very few movies reach 5. But I'll agree with you. They're not really zombies. They're more like demons. I think, and I'd recommend the movie for anybody that likes to watch that kind of stuff. I can think of a lot of other things that I've watched that are far less captivating. And I didn't know, after I realized it came out in 1994 instead of 1985. I guess it was supposed to be mildly comedic. I don't know. I dug it. I thought it was,
I'm with you, man. I thought it was in the 80s. When you said that, I'm glad you said that, because I would have probably forgotten. But when I first saw it, I was thinking like it had that feel. It had a look and a feel to it.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure when, I couldn't remember what year I saw it, but once I started hearing the music, it felt more early 90s to me. I thought it was earlier than 94, like maybe 90, 91. But a word about that soundtrack. I like the soundtrack too. And they kept playing this part of the song like over and over again, particularly during like any motorcycle scene. I think they were playing this song and I was like, man, I know that song. What is that? Because I think there was only a couple songs they were playing other than what was it? The song that's it's Beethoven. But they were playing a different part of a Beethoven song that isn't. I think it's the same one that's in one of the Beethoven songs that's in Clockwork Orange. But the song I found out what the song is. It's an instrumental part of an Ozzy song called Hellraiser. I knew I'd heard it before.
It's actually part of the song. Like they actually,
yeah.
Wow.
But when you hear it when you hear it in the thing, I was shocked when I realized once I saw that it was the Ozzy song. I was like, oh, that's right. But when I was like, I've heard this before, I was not thinking Ozzy at all. I wasn't, because it doesn't sound like just the little bits that they're using. And they kept using this part, and it made it sound cool. And yeah, it's an Ozzy song. Lemmy also did that song too. I don't know who wrote it, but they both recorded it from Motorhead. I don't know if Motorhead did it or just Lemmy. I can't remember, but yeah. So Jeremiah.
Yes.
We've talked deeply about the movie.
Yeah.
There's a lot to think about. Some of it may be overthinking, but
probably a lot of it, man. I think that Blaine, his smile is like these cats here. It was all the absinthe, man. We in between the shows, we're just chugging absinthe, and Blaine's lighting it on fire, and yeah.
So
I haven't gone downstairs. But.
I know this movie has pushed you into the Illumination Cave.
Yes.
Where you've thought about, lessons that you may have learned, maybe even some new morals that you've come up with. But can you share any of that with us? What you've maybe learned?
It's it was deep, dude. And I obviously was looking into it very deeply, and it was making me, it's kind of just reminding me, of things that I've gone through. There was a scene. What do you call it? That the area that they went into, and it had the cross and the lights coming through, and there's water and stuff.
Ossuary.
Sometimes I may have found myself in a similar place. But you go and you follow her because you're willing to, go to many lengths to, do the thing. And so you go inside and everything starts getting creepy, and she's smelling stuff just like the movie, smelling it, touching skulls and talking about them, wanting her to do things. And she's like, I gotta go. And the clothes are ripping off, and I'm watching the whole thing. And as I was watching this, and it's bringing back these memories and causing them fresh again in my mind, I said, dude, you have to remember to give her her outfit, because you don't want her crazy ass coming back. Trust me, I did the same thing, distracted by everything, the jiggles, and watched her go out the door, and her butt came back the next day needing her top. And trust me, she's not the kind of person you want around.
Okay, good lesson. Good lesson.
What about you, man? What'd you learn, buddy?
I've been with my wife for 29 and a half years. And for any long-term relationship like that, those first few years, they're full of, wild sex and butterflies, and it's a great time. But when that starts to die down, there's this whole different type of love that feels unconditional, more selfless and sacrificial. And it's on a whole other level. But no matter how much I love my wife, I will never inject my junk so that it just completely shuts down. That level of love is something I just can't get behind, because while I may not use my equipment as much as I did back in the day, I still use it, and I plan on it. So.
And if you did, dude, you would have to have like a lot of that kind of sedative and some kind of pain thing. Homeboy didn't use any. He's like, I don't want any.
Well, he was punishing himself for sure.
You're taking it for the team on this, dude. Yeah, Blaine. And before we stop, man, last thing. Duke of the Delridge. Explain what this is. Lord Zippy Blaine, the Duke of the Delridge. This is by far the coolest name of anybody who's come on the show ever. Like, we've never had a name like this.
That's kind of the neighborhood I live in. It's kind of the Delridge, and I don't know. I self-proclaim myself the Duke of the Delridge. I don't,
He's got another name on there that's not even the Wizard. It's not even on there. He's got a long
Zippy. I've got Lord Zippy Blaine. The bunch of different things I've gone through as I've done different things over the years. I'm sticking with Lord Zippy Blaine, the Duke of the Delridge. That's going to that'll be my one from here on out. Maybe. I don't know.
It's a good one.
I still got quite a ways to go.
It has a ring to it.
Yeah, it has a ring to it.
For sure.
And you kind of have the air, man, of like a duke. You know what I mean? Like, I can imagine, like, back in the day, like, we were to transport back in time and stuff, have a kind of that magic transport thing. That they'd be like, Duke of Delridge. And you're like, yes, it is I.
It is I. So, do you have anything that you have coming out? I don't know if you can talk about the one thing yet. This episode will air probably in about maybe 3 or 4 weeks. So I don't know if there's anything that
I just recently put out a 2-record set from a band that I did that was kind of like right after the Farts, called 10-Minute Warning, which was kind of like the Farts, and we kind of the same thing, a little bit different. I was in the band for about 4 months, so I put out a 2-record set that kind of shows what it was like while I was in the band. And then I did a project where the music was written by a good friend of ours who passed away not too long ago, Steve Slayer Hippie Hanford, and he put 4 songs together, and that was released as it's going to be released. The band is called Dead End America, DEA, and I'm one of the singers, and Nick Oliveri, who's a bass player for Queens of the Stone Age and a couple other things. He sings on one of the songs, and Mike Williams from I Hate God sings on one of the songs. And that's a single. It's coming out at the end of this month, at the end of October. Got that going on. I'm going to sing a song on the new, I hope, Municipal Waste record that's coming out.
Nice.
So I'm
you can tell without them even saying it. You can tell they're big fans of The Accused. Yeah. It's so obvious.
And they're really, nice. That's a good thing. The older you get, one of the things that kind of changes with some things about music is there's people aren't quite as pretentious, and there's a lot of ability, a lot of friendship, and good vibes in there, which I appreciate. I'm happy to be able to still be involved and do things, because I don't consider myself a musician. I'm not a great lyricist. I don't really play an instrument. Being able to do stuff is what keeps me going.
Did you this is a little off topic, but I just thought of something. Did you ever think that with your style of singing that you'd ever be able to still do this in your 50s?
No, not even.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like, when you listen to it and you think, okay, this came out in 81, 82, and this came out in 2020. It's kind of unbelievable that you can pull that off, man, and not just because it sounds painful.
Yeah.
And I know that it can be, but to be doing that long and play that many shows and do that many records and in that many practices and still be pulling it off. Yeah, it's impressive, man.
I don't have I definitely don't have the voice that I once had.
It's a little different, but still it still sounds painful.
Yeah.
Have you been doing the Zen of screaming? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
I don't,
she's a singing coach.
Yeah, no, I don't, I just, I took voice lessons for about 6 months, back in probably about 1986. That was more like a kind of a technique type of a deal. I don't know. It's just what I do. It just comes out. There's whatever little technique that I have. I know that now there's a whole it's a whole thing, the whole screaming and the way people do it. It's, it's an actual taught, learned sort of a thing versus what I did just kind of happened. That's just,
yeah. And how can people, if they want to follow you with your cooking and with your boozing it up, where can they go for this, man? Where can they go to see this stuff?
The Wicker Bar.
Yeah, our Facebook page is called the Wicker Bar, and then we have a Facebook page for Toe Tag. We don't unfortunately have a Facebook page for the Accused AD. There is a fan group for people that like the Accused. I think it's called the Accused, the Lifeless Zone, something like that. People can find out stuff there. And we have a website, splatterrock.com, if you want to throw some dollars our way. We're still trying to pay for tickets. We were supposed to play in Puerto Rico back in whenever that was. I don't even remember now. But yeah, I'm still trying to pay off those tickets. So yeah, the band, we're still about $1,500 in debt. So I'm hoping to get that debt off so we can be and we're writing new material. So we're hoping to be able to record, end of the year, beginning of 2021. And I would like to, get that debt below $1,000 would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go to splatterrock.com, and they got tons of merch there. You still got records there too. I know you got t-shirts and patches.
Yeah.
And they're all like ridiculously reasonably priced.
Yeah.
And go do that. And if you go to, just search for like Lifeless Zone, accused AD or whatever. And if you join that group, Blaine's always in there, posting links for different things. So if you whether it be the website or the Wicker Bar or something like that, so you can always get on that. You got any copies of the 10-minute warning left?
Oh yeah,
I know it's only 300. Okay, I bought one a couple weeks ago, and I pre-ordered the 7-inch.
Yeah,
excited about that. So yeah, go visit the website, check out the music, and anything with Toe Tag or Accused AD that other than writing songs that you can talk about that might be coming up.
That's what. There's really nothing. We can't really do anything else. I know we're going to probably do another live stream here.
Great.
In a couple of months. I don't envision. I know things are different. Across country. I really don't envision any live stuff happening until spring.
Yeah.
Spring or summer.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you guys are able to pay that debt and get another record out there, man.
Oh, yeah, me too. Even if we don't pay the debt, we'll still do another record.
Yeah. Great. Well, Jeremiah, how can they reach us? I guess just email us or whatever.
Yeah. They can do that. It's super easy, super dupe. Anywhere you go, it doesn't matter. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Gmail. It's all the same. PaleoCheeze. PaleoCheeze or Z. Z-E. And so you can just do it there. Okay. No matter where it goes, you can follow us. And of course, we're on Acast. We're also on Spotify. And there's a whole bunch of different podcast platforms that we're on. And so check it out. If you have a preferred platform and you can't find us, let us know and we'll see maybe what it takes in order to get our stuff sent over there. And so that's how they can do it, Chad.
Yeah. I want to thank Blaine again for hanging out with us for 2 hours plus.
Yes.
And that meant a lot to me. It was great finally being able to, actually kind of almost, virtually hang out. Yeah. So, thanks again, man. And everybody, thanks for listening. And we will see you next time.
All right. Peace.
Do you like horror movies? Do you like collecting things? Do you like collecting Blu-ray special editions of horror movies? Well then, the Horror Academic's Guide to Movies is the show for you. It's a web series where every month I pick one modern classic and determine which is the best version that I recommend that you should own. I talk a little bit about the history of the movie, and in the end, you get to see what films should be in your home collection of horror's modern classics. That's the Horror Academic's Guide to Movies on YouTube every month, and now part of the Project Entertainment Network.